She thought she knew who belonged in her restaurant, until the most powerful person in town walked through that door asking for the very dish she'd just thrown away. Sometimes the people you dismiss hold the keys to everything you thought you controlled. The cast-iron skillet hissed like a warning as Malik Johnson flipped the chicken, its golden skin crackling with promise. Steam rose from the pan, carrying the scent of his grandmother's secret blend, paprika, cayenne, and something else, something that made people close their eyes and remember home. The morning rush at Pine Dock Diner had ended, leaving only the rhythmic sizzle of his cooking and the distant clatter of dishes being washed. Malik's hands moved with practiced precision, spooning sweet corn kernels beside the chicken, their kernels bursting with juice as they hit the hot surface. This wasn't just another plate. This was his signature dish, the one that had taken him 3 years to perfect. The okra and lime sauce, thick and tangy, was the crown jewel, a recipe passed down through 4 generations of women who had cooked with love even when love wasn't returned. "Order up," he called softly, sliding the plate across the pass. But Betty Morrison, the head waitress, barely glanced at it. Her lips pursed as she examined the vibrant colors, the deep amber of the sauce, the bright yellow corn, the herb-crusted chicken that looked nothing like the bland fare typically served at Pine Dock. "Our customers don't eat this," she muttered, her voice carrying just loud enough for Malik to hear. The words hit him like ice water, but he kept his expression neutral. He'd heard variations of this sentiment before, in other kitchens, other towns. But here, in this small coastal community where he'd hoped to belong, it still stung. Betty lifted the plate with deliberate distaste, her wedding ring catching the fluorescent light as she carried it toward the dining room. But instead of heading to a table, she veered toward the industrial trash bin near the back door. The metallic clang of the plate hitting the bottom echoed through the kitchen like a slap. Malik's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He'd learned long ago that some battles couldn't be won with words. His grandmother's voice whispered in his memory, "Cook with your heart, baby. The right people will taste the love." But as he watched Betty return to her station, smoothing her apron with satisfaction, he wondered if the right people existed in this town. Lucas, the young dishwasher, had witnessed the entire exchange from his station by the sink. His face flushed red with embarrassment and anger, soap suds dripping from his hands as he stared at Betty's retreating form. At 19, Lucas had seen enough unfairness in his short life, but something about Betty's casual cruelty made his stomach turn. The front door chimed, its brass bell announcing a new arrival. Malik glanced up from his prep station to see a woman in a simple navy coat stepping inside, her cheeks pink from the October cold. She rubbed her hands together, seeking warmth, and scanned the nearly empty diner with curious eyes. There was something familiar about her, though Malik couldn't place where he'd seen her before. Betty straightened immediately, her demeanor shifting into practiced hospitality. "Good morning." "Right this way, ma'am." But the woman held up a gentle hand, declining the offer to be seated. "Actually, I'm here for something specific," the woman said, her voice carrying a quiet authority that made the diner seem smaller somehow. "I've been hearing about a dish for weeks now. Chicken with some kind of okra and lime sauce. The folks at the shelter can't stop talking about it." The shelter. Malik's heart quickened. For the past month, he'd been volunteering there on his days off, cooking meals for the homeless population. It was unpaid work, but it fed something in his soul that the diner couldn't touch. Those people appreciated his food, understood the love he put into every spoonful. Betty's smile faltered for just a moment before reassembling itself. "Oh, well, we have our regular chicken special, but I'm not sure about any okra sauce." "I know it exists," the woman interrupted gently but firmly. "Samuel at the shelter described it in detail. He said it reminded him of his grandmother's cooking in Louisiana. I had to try it myself." Lucas cleared his throat from his station, his voice cracking slightly. She threw it away." The words tumbled out before he could stop them, propelled by a sense of justice that his teenage heart couldn't contain. The diner fell silent, except for the hum of the refrigerators and the distant tick of the wall clock. Betty's face went white, then red, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. The woman in the navy coat turned her attention to Malik, her eyes sharp and assessing. "You're the chef," she said. It wasn't a question. Malik nodded slowly, wiping his hands on his apron. "Yes, ma'am. And you are?" "Amy Carver," she replied, and suddenly Malik understood why she seemed familiar. The mayor's photo had been in the local paper countless times, but seeing her here, without the formal attire and surrounded entourage, she seemed like any other neighbor seeking comfort food on a chilly morning. The realization hit Betty like a thunderbolt. Her carefully constructed composure crumbled as she stammered, "Mayor Carver, we didn't, I can get you anything you'd like from our regular menu." "I'd like the dish I came for," Amy said simply, her gaze never leaving Malik's face. "If that's possible." Malik felt something shift inside his chest, a tightness that had been there so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe without it. Without a word, he turned back to his station and began pulling ingredients from the walk-in cooler. Fresh chicken thighs, corn kernels that still held their summer sweetness, okra pods that snapped with freshness. The cast-iron skillet heated quickly, and soon the kitchen filled with the aromatic symphony of his cooking. But this time, it felt different. The mayor had pulled up a stool at the counter, watching him work with genuine interest. Lucas had abandoned his dishes to observe, his eyes bright with anticipation. Even the other kitchen staff had gathered, drawn by the unusual tension in the air. "Tell me about the sauce," Amy said as Malik whisked the okra mixture, his movements fluid and confident despite the audience. "My great-grandmother created it during the Depression," Malik replied, his voice warming as he spoke about his family's legacy. "She said food should bring people together, not divide them. The lime cuts through the richness, and the okra gives it body. But the secret ingredient?" He paused, adding a mysterious brown liquid from a small bottle. That's love. Concentrated." Amy laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to relax everyone in the kitchen. "Love concentrate. I like that." As the dish came together, the aroma began to work its magic. Other customers, drawn by the scent, lingered near the kitchen window. The mailman, making his afternoon delivery, poked his head inside and asked, "What's cooking? Smells like heaven in here." Betty stood frozen near the register, watching her carefully ordered world shift around her. She'd spent years as the unofficial gatekeeper of Pine Dock Diner, deciding who belonged and who didn't, what food was acceptable and what wasn't. But now, faced with the mayor's obvious approval of everything she'd rejected, her certainty crumbled. When Malik finally plated the dish, it looked like a work of art. The golden chicken glistened with herbs, the corn kernels sparkled like jewels, and the okra sauce pooled around the edges in perfect amber spirals. He slid it across the counter to Amy, who picked up her fork with anticipation. The first bite seemed to last forever. Amy closed her eyes, savoring the complex flavors as they unfolded on her tongue. The chicken was perfectly seasoned, the corn brought sweetness and texture, but the sauce was revelation. It was tangy and rich, with layers of flavor that revealed themselves slowly, like a good conversation. "This," she said finally, opening her eyes to meet Malik's gaze, "is extraordinary." The kitchen erupted in quiet celebration. Lucas grinned so wide his face hurt, and even the line cooks who rarely showed emotion allowed themselves small smiles. But Malik remained calm, professional, waiting to see where this moment would lead. Amy set down her fork and pulled out her phone. "I need to make some calls. First, I want you to cater tomorrow night's city council meeting. All of it. Show these city leaders what real hospitality looks like." She paused, taking another bite. "Second, we're incorporating this dish into our annual Coastal Heritage Festival. Pine Dock Diner just became our official venue." The room seemed to spin around Betty as the implications hit her. The Coastal Heritage Festival brought thousands of visitors to their small town every year, and being the official venue would triple their business overnight. She just tried to throw away what could be the restaurant's salvation. "And third," Amy continued, her voice taking on the tone of someone accustomed to making decisions that mattered, "starting this Friday, Pine Dock Diner will host weekly community dinners. Free meals for anyone who needs them, funded by the city's community outreach program." Malik felt tears prick his eyes, but he blinked them back. This was more than recognition. This was validation of everything his grandmother had taught him about the power of food to heal and unite. "I'd be honored, Mayor Carver." "Just Amy," she said, returning to her meal, "and I'll be here every Friday to help serve." Betty finally found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "I was wrong." The words seemed to cost her physically, but she forced them out. "I was wrong about the food, wrong about everything." Malik looked at her for a long moment, seeing not the woman who'd thrown away his work, but someone trapped by her own fears and prejudices. His grandmother's voice echoed again. Extend grace, even when it's hard. Everyone makes mistakes, he said quietly. What matters is what we do next. Would you like to learn how to make the sauce? Betty nodded, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in years, she felt the possibility of change, of being better than her worst impulses. That evening, Pine Dock Diner transformed. Word had spread through the town with lightning speed, and by 6 o'clock, every table was full. People who'd never spoken to each other found themselves sharing dessert and debating the merits of different spice combinations. The mayor sat at a corner booth with the town librarian and the gas station owner, all of them scraping their plates clean. Lucas moved between tables with newfound confidence, his earlier shy demeanor replaced by pride in being part of something special. The other staff members, inspired by the day's events, began suggesting ways to improve the menu and make the restaurant more welcoming. And in the kitchen, Malik cooked with a lightness he hadn't felt in years. Each plate that went out carried his story, his heritage, his hope for a more inclusive world. The rhythmic sizzle of the skillet had become a song of triumph, and the steam rising from his pans carried the scent of possibility. As the last customer left and the staff began cleaning up, Amy approached the kitchen window one final time. Thank you, she said simply. You didn't just cook tonight, you built community. Malik smiled, thinking of his grandmother and all the women who'd come before him, cooking with love even when that love wasn't reciprocated. That's what food is for, he replied, to bring people together. Outside, the small coastal town settled into evening quiet, but something fundamental had changed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities for growth and understanding. But tonight, in a little diner called Pine Dock, the simple act of sharing a meal had reminded everyone that despite their differences, they all belonged to the same community. And in the kitchen, as Malik cleaned his cast iron skillet, he whispered a soft thank you to his grandmother's memory. The recipe had done its work once again, opening hearts and changing minds one bite at a time. The love, concentrated and served with courage, had found its way to exactly the right people at exactly the right moment. The transformation of Pine Dock Diner was just beginning, but the foundation had been laid, not with grand gestures or political speeches, but with the simple truth that good food, prepared with love and served without prejudice, had the power to change the world one meal at a time.